Welcome to At the Fence. I'm Adrienne.
And I'm Michelle, and we're so glad you're here.
This is a podcast for women and horses. It's for the woman who still thinks about horses, the woman who walked away because she had to raise her family, who sold her horse to raise her kids, the one who tells herself she's too old or too rusty or too scared. I found myself standing at the fence again, questioning, watching, wondering if it was too late. And it's not. If you're standing at the fence right now, this is for you.
And it's for the woman who's already been back in the saddle or wants to do it better with more relationship and more confidence, or who's been here all along, like myself. But yet now in this part of our life, something's different, something's changed. Wherever you are, you're welcome at the fence. If you're nodding right now, we made this for you. There's going to be no judgment here about skill level or age or how long you've been away or what you can do or not. Everyone is welcome at the fence with us.
For sure.
So Adrienne, who are we? And why does that matter?
Oh yeah, so we are an odd pair, and that's the whole point of this podcast.
Yeah, it is for sure. So one of us never stopped. That's me. My whole life involved with the horses. I've competed at a high level in show jumping, and then I spent years expanding my knowledge, a lot of it following the horsemanship of Ray Hunt and Brock Brannaman, and that is what I train and focus on now.
Yep. And I'm the one who walked away from being a little girl, seeing the horses behind my elementary school and sparking that passion, to walking away when I didn't have the opportunity to have horses as an adult, and until I got into my 50s. And here I am today. And that's me. I'm not the expert on the podcast. You are.
Did you not just buy your first horse?
I did just buy my first horse. Yes.
So you're going to tell a little secret. What age were you when you bought your very first horse?
I bought my first horse at 63.
Wow, that's amazing.
So, yep, it's never too late.
Yep. So that's who we are. That's who we are. And so what was the meaning behind the title, what we've called the podcast, At the Fence?
Yeah, we came up with this because we did it on purpose. The fence is where so much happens. That's where we stand before you're brave enough to go through the gate, and where you lean on it, just watching your horse graze, or as I did as a child, seeing those horses on the other side of that fence behind the elementary school.
Yeah, for sure. And for me, I thought, like, at the fence, okay, it's a place of dreaming, but it's a place of learning, because I still, a lot of times, will stand at the fence and just watch my horses. You can learn a lot from the fence as well. Mm-hmm. But some of the most honest conversations I've ever had have happened leaning on a fence.
Absolutely.
Leaning on that fence rail with another horsewoman, talking about the horses and what we're doing. Mm-hmm. But that's the feeling we want this show to have. We want that deep connection of being at the fence.
Absolutely.
So when I see those women, though, I mean, I do notice it. Gotta excuse the background noise sometimes, because there's a motorbike in the road over there. Part of the thrill of this podcast. You know, this is our first time with podcasting, right. So bear with us here,
please.
But yeah, no, I notice it. I notice those women. I see that feeling inside them, and I feel like sometimes they're hanging back. Like I can feel the longing, but they're hanging back. Yeah. They don't really know where to start. They're not sure. They're not confident. They're frightened. You know, the equestrian world is just so full of shiny objects and different opinions and 30 different ways to train a horse.
Absolutely.
And everybody's got an opinion on something. So I think there's a lot of trepidation in there. And I see that when those people are standing at the fence.
And for me, there's that curiosity of when I'll watch Michelle training, or I'll watch her working with her horses, or things like going to a clinic where you're standing at that fence and you're watching and learning with that curiosity of, is this how this is done, or how do I do that? And then it takes you almost to that next step of what you want to do.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that's why we came up with the title, At the Fence, with lots of different choices, but something about that resonated. So we hope it resonates with you as well.
For sure.
So Adrienne, let's talk a little bit about your story. take me back. When did the horses first get into your blood?
Well, as I had mentioned a little bit earlier about the elementary school, there was horses behind my elementary school, and I would just always try to get over there and go see the horses and watch them, and it just sort of spiked a passion. And then we had lived outside of the city, so I didn't have horses, and we didn't have the ability at that point in time monetarily to go to a riding stable or whatnot. And eventually, and I was in 4th or 5th grade, we moved to the northern New York. Dad bought 100 acres and we started buying horses. And first horse was Lady, a big, huge albino. And she came with a little package called Dawn, which we didn't know about.
Surprise!
Yes, she was born at Dawn. So that's how we got her. And then he had bought a couple other horses, but my true heart horse is April. He was in Appaloosa, and he and I just had a connection. I showed for a little bit. My dad and I would just jump on the horses and go right out in the woods, and I would just jump on him and go for a ride for hours just out in the fields, wherever in the country. And then, unfortunately, my dad had to sell the horses, and that was a really tough time for me in life. Yeah. And after that, I would just try to be around horses as much as I could. Learned how to drive a team with a friend of mine who had some big old Andalusians, and would take care of my friend's race horses for a little while when he was had them into stables in the winter. But then moving to Florida, that was just tough. Took him completely off the plate for a long time. And I got a job where I would drive by this therapeutic riding stable, and I would look at it and go, oh, they have horses, that passion arises again. And so I volunteered there for a while, and I knew there was still something a little bit I needed and wanted more than my own horse, or just doing things in a different way. And I had watched the Buck movie at one point when it first came out, and it just really hit me. This is how I want to be with horses, because it reminded me of my relationship with my Appaloosa April. And
so how did you meet me? Tell them the story.
Go ahead. The story. So I was volunteering, and I had just been praying about wanting to be with horses, and I had gotten a few English riding lessons, and that's just not my cup of tea. That's fine. People love it. That's fine. And I was just like, this is just not where I want to spend my money. And I just prayed about just want to be around and ride horses. And a couple of weeks later, Michelle's husband, Chris, God bless him, he walks in and he works for UPS driver, yes, right? He's a UPS driver where I work. And he's like, is that your horse plate? And I was like, well, yeah. And he's like, oh, my wife and I have 4 horses. And I'm thinking, he said, do you think maybe she'd want to let me ride or teach me or something? I just want to be around some horses. And I'll ask her. And of course, I'm thinking, yeah, well, he'll forget because he sees a lot of people in the day. But no, he didn't. And he came back the next day and he said, here's Michelle's number, give her a call. And the rest is history.
The rest is history.
It is, yeah.
So not only did that connection lead you here back to the horses, but it led you to this friendship that
Absolutely,
we have,
yes.
We have done so many fun things together. And here we are doing this podcast together.
Absolutely.
So it's all fun, right?
For sure. It's been awesome.
But Adrienne, when I hear you talk about that, when I see it in your face, and I know I've heard the story many times about the horses going, that made a huge emotional impact for you.
It did. It was probably one of the hardest things in my life. I mean, you can even today.
Sure. Yeah.
Been through divorces. They were easier than losing my horses that day.
Yeah.
And so there is that passion. I know that there's women out there that have that passion as well, and felt that heartache and want to get back to it. And
there absolutely is. And we're going to dive into that probably more in the future about that, about how the emotional thing comes into play.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for sharing that, because it really is, it's a tough thing.
For sure. And so Michelle, I'm so blessed to know this lady and her experience. I'm honored to know her and the things that she's done, the horses she's ridden. And she has some amazing stories, which we will hear about some of the horses when she was riding and how she grew up. And so tell our audience a bit about how you started with horses.
Yeah.
What ignited your passion?
Well, let's start with where I'm from. So I'm not from the United States, as you probably have picked up already. I'm from Scotland, born and raised in Scotland, moved to the United States when I was 32. But where did my first passion for horses come? Well, my family owned a very large hotel in central Scotland, and we had, I don't know, over 100 acres behind us. It wasn't all ours. We sat on acreage, but we had use of it, and we had our own acreage there. But the hotel life was a very busy life for my parents. And I was very fortunate to have two sets of grandparents that were very good friends with each other. And their passion in their retirement was caravanning. In this country, we call it camping. In Scotland, we call it caravanning. And so I would go with them every summer. And one of the places that they would go was the New Forest. New Forest is where the wild New Forest ponies live.
Oh,
and
awesome.
So that was heaven for me. I just was completely in heaven. And I remember going to the wash houses in the evening to have my shower, and I would stand up against the fence that they would be behind and looking at them, and they were running free in the wild forest. So it was amazing, you know, and that was what really started my passion. And that was probably when I was as little as like 5 years old, to be honest. I think we had a crazy little Shetland pony when I was 5. In fact, I know we did. I don't really want to talk about him because it probably wasn't the best experience. Neil Shetland is, I don't think. But his name was Lucky. But I started going, you know, I would stay with my mom's parents, my gran and granddad, every weekend on a Friday till a Sunday.
How blessed is
Busiest weekend. Busiest days of the week for my parents in the hotel. And my granddad knew a gentleman who owned a riding stable. It was riding lessons. And he would drop me off early in the morning and pick me up at 5 o'clock at night, and off I would go with my little backpack and my packed lunch and, you know, my flask of hot Bovril. And I would muck stalls and brush horse ponies and clean things and do whatever I could just to get a ride. And that's where I learned to ride. That's where I learned to ride. That's where I jumped my very first jump. I totally remember completely being launched out the saddle into Mr. Comrie's arms. So that's where it all started, and it just kind of, you know, grew from there. My grandfather bought me one of those ponies that I would care for that I didn't know he was going to do, and it was a birthday present, and that was my first Palomino Shadow. And here I lie with a Palomino again. Seems to be they're connected to me in some way, shape, or form. But it grew into something that I started competing, and my love for show jumping grew and grew, and that thrill and excitement of jumping. And eventually I was lucky enough that my parents were in a position to be able to buy me a really nice horse, and I stepped into really kind of more of the upper level of show jumping, and that grew. And I ended up jumping for the Scottish Young Riders teams. I traveled all over Great Britain, competing at some of the best showgrounds in the United Kingdom. It was an amazing experience.
Absolutely.
And not just for me, because my mom and dad did travel with me. So having grown up with my parents being so busy in the hotel, it was a wonderful time for me, because that was my childhood all the way through till I got married.
Horses do become a family.
They do. You know, my dad had to fly back and forward a lot, but he was very passionate about his horse box. We don't call them horse trailers over there. It's a horse box. That's a whole different language from the Scottish thing. But that was, you know, his pride and joy. And my mom used to keep us all fed and watered and on track for everything, and keep me looking good and all of whatever I had to wear. But yeah, it was really something. But then, you know, things all changed for me when I got married, and naivety was a little bit in play for sure. Naiveness in the world is great, and I'm getting married, and I'm moving on to a next chapter. But then there's reality of what happens to my horses, and reality of finances. And so things changed dramatically for me at that point. But I was fortunate that the family that I did marry into, even although my husband wasn't passionate about the horses like I was, he did ride and jump, but his father was, and so he actually ended up with a Dutch warm blood breeding farm, and I had the opportunity to help with that after my children were born, and that was a great experience. So even although it changed, it changed, you know, to the better as well, just
Mhm.
different for me, not
Right.
competing as much.
How did you move into the different thought processes of the horsemanship versus the high-end competitive show jumping that you were in when you were a child?
Yeah, that was a
Younger.
big transition for me. So, you know, it came, all things happen for a reason, and that one was one of them. So when I actually took over with my friend, kind of running on a daily basis the stud farm, my father-in-law had some health issues, and my friend and I took over. One of the horses that was with us had been out to a couple of different people to get started and had not had great experiences. Came actually terrible. He was a big horse. He wasn't the easiest, but he had come back not started and in a bad experiences. So we kind of stood and looked at him for a couple of weeks and wondered what we're going to do with him. Yeah, we cleaned his stall and we put him on a horse walker, and we were scratching our head a little bit because he was definitely not the easiest. And we got a phone call one day from a friend who asked us if we had any horses that problem horses that we needed somebody.
Oh boy, did she!
Oh yeah, we had one. Send him. Okay, I think my mind might not serve me correctly, but I believe he was from Australia. So lo and behold, this gentleman shows up and takes the horse's name was Ricky, takes him into our small indoor school that was about the size of a round pen, slightly bigger, perfect for starting horses. And we were fascinated. We were hooked. We saw for the very first time something called join up. Many of you might have heard of that word. Originally for us back in the UK, we didn't have Pirelli or anything like that. The person that was involved with this type of horsemanship was called Monty Roberts. And you can probably look him up. He was involved with the Queen for many years. And so he was the person that we learned the join up process for. And that's how we first started with it. But that's not what changed everything. I learned that was the start. That was how we got them to want to be with us, the young horses untouched, and be more comfortable with us, how we got a saddle on them, how we started them. But starting is just getting on them and starting to have them walk and trot and canter with you on them. But then there's a whole progression of training. So we really just kind of went back to our English way of training at that point until not that many years ago. I think it was probably 7 or 8 years ago, I had the opportunity to go to a Buck Brannaman clinic. And I'd already come back into the horsemanship world with a difficult off-track thoroughbred with trailer loading. I met one of my other very good friends through that issue. And I was given the opportunity to go to this clinic. And I said, absolutely. Didn't really know who Buck Brannaman was. Started reading up on him, started looking. I'm like, wow, this is something. But Buck is not about the commercial side of it, about the money-making side of it. There's no glitz and glamour at his clinics. It's just raw, basic arenas.
The only thing he sells is how to be the best with your horse and your horse to be best with you.
And he's just awesome. And I stood there and he came in and everybody was standing around the arena rail waiting to start the clinic on their horses. And Buck does a little demonstration and I'm watching this cowboy. I'm from Scotland. I do not know what cowboying means. He was in his cowboy gear, riding this little quarter horse, and he was doing some dressage moves that were just so fluent and beautiful. And the connection he had with that horse made me just say, I need to know more.
I want some of that.
I need to know more. And so from the Buck Brannaman, Ray Hunt horsemanship, I learned the progression that took me from that basic starting of the horse, putting it all together, to there's a different way to do this to get them to the top end, to the collection, to the lateral movement, to everything we need to do the higher level moves. But those higher level moves aren't just for dressage or jumping.
No.
They're used for cow sorting. Even when you're out on the trails, your horse needs to be, needs to be able to maneuver in ways that a horse that doesn't know that potentially can't do. So that was how I changed over, and that's what we've been focusing on ever since.
And that is an awesome story. And the thing that we say about going on, like even just trail riding. You know, a lot of us, as we get older and we get a horse or we're riding horses, we just want to go for a trail ride. But the things that we are going to be talking about are going to help you to learn to be safer and more confident and be able to enjoy that trail ride a bit more.
Right.
And know that you can be with your horse and your horse can be with you.
Yeah,
And,
it's
yeah,
like
mhm.
Buck says,
Yeah.
I always laugh. Buck says, you're going to do something good, do something, do it really good.
Absolutely.
Even if you're only going to the mailbox to pick up your mail.
That's right.
And believe me, I've only gone to the mailbox to pick up my mail sometimes with my horse, but I'm going to do it well because we do live in South Florida and it's very hot and we don't have open pastures like we would like, but that's
for sure. Well, thank you for sharing your story.
So, Adrienne, why this podcast and why now?
Why? Because I think there's so many women out there, especially now. And if you want to talk statistics, I mean, when they talk about the like 90% of horse owners now are women. Yeah. And they're in the ages of 40 to 60 and up. And there's women out there riding in their 80s, which just blows me away. I love that. Yeah. And that's going to be me. And but we're innately emotional, and we get fear, and we're not sure how to step out of that mother role, or that, or we finally get to a point where we could afford it, or we have things changed in our lives, how to make that transition. But that desire has been there for years and years and years. And that we want to bring women along to have that fear and that no more fear, and have confidence, and know that they can enjoy their horses, learn about their horses, even if it's not their horse, other horses, and how to just bring that passion.
So do you think that there's a lot of women out there that have got questions and they're just kind of too embarrassed to ask those questions?
Oh, absolutely. I was. I went and I volunteered at the riding facility, and it was for therapeutic riding. And there was just wasn't a place where I could ask those questions of the things that I had that desire with in the Buck Brannaman style, or just that horsemanship style. And then when you and I met, it was like, I want to know how to have this connection, how to be able to be with my horse, and my horse want to be with me.
Right.
And it is a learning curve, but it's amazing once you get there. And there's a lot of women that still have that fear, or they might be doing something that is not safe. Yeah. And we want to teach them the right way to be doing things that have that connection with their horses.
And I realized that how many women have those very same questions. I also realized after helping some women through the past couple of years that there's so many things that I do that are automatic pilot for me. I don't ever think about it.
Right.
But it's totally missed in some of the information that's out there. For sure.
Absolutely.
And sometimes those women feel no one asks that question. Right. They do feel like they don't want to ask because that might be a stupid question.
Absolutely.
And guess what? They're standing there on their own at the fence. They don't want to know.
For sure.
So that's kind of what Prompty does.
Yes.
To do this. I feel like there's a starting point with the education you can find out there, but I feel like there's more underneath that could be so much more beneficial, just really, really basic stuff that we can all make mistakes doing, and we all don't know. Right. I mean, we've all seen crazy stuff when we're out at the shows or going around and think, oh gosh, I wish somebody had just learned a bit more about that. But that's not what's talked about. No. The training, the riding, the learning to ride, all of that's talked about. But we're going to talk about something different. Right. We are going to also talk about the emotional side of it.
Oh, for sure.
Middle-aged women like ourselves, what that means to us,
and that it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to have a fear and speak to people. And we want you to feel confident and give you the tools so that you're comfortable going and getting a horse out of the pasture, saddling it. When you want to go look for a horse, what are we looking for? It's not he's a good looking horse.
Right. No, so, it's not.
Yeah. So we want to hit all of those topics, the barn, the horses, your health stuff that is, just things that we need to know about.
Physical stuff
physical stuff, right.
in this section of life we're in now. You know, we've all got those type of things. So really, we're kind of moving into the question is, what can we expect?
Right,
so
absolutely.
What can we expect? You know,
For sure.
What are we going to talk about? A little of everything.
Absolutely.
A little of everything that lives at the fence. You know, for me, there's been so many changes as I've moved into middle age that, like I said, I've been here all along, and I hope that there's some listeners that have been here all along, but suddenly something was different now. So we're going to talk about all of that type of thing and each week, and then eventually we might have some guests on. We've got some ideas of guests, but that's what you can expect from us over this course of podcasts, and we're always open to questions.
Absolutely. Please do. And there's no stupid questions, really. That is so true. There's just no question that you can't ask us that we wouldn't have a good answer for you that is kind. And we don't play the mean game here.
Right. No, for sure.
Yeah.
And so, just in ending, whether you're still standing at the fence dreaming or you're leaning on it watching your own horse graze, this is going to be the space for you.
Yes. And if you know of a woman who's also still standing at the gate or standing at the fence and dreaming and has that desire, just share our podcast.
So where can they find us, Adrienne?
They can find us on Facebook, Instagram, soon to come, YouTube. And we will be on all of the podcasts and iPhone and Android, all of those, where any place you can find it on Spotify, so that you can follow our podcast, whatever your device you're using, wherever you're doing, and you can follow us and help us all grow together. What are we called
on Instagram and Facebook?
We are called Empower Equine US.
Empower Equine US. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Reach out at any time. We're more than happy to chat. Eventually, we're hoping that we'll be able to pull together a group for our fellow listeners and so we can get a little bit of community going.
Absolutely.
That would be wonderful. Yep. And so before we end, you know, we've got this formal little disclaimer here that we have to say.
Gotta keep,
We just want everybody to know that At the Fence shares our personal stories and encouragement. It's not professional training, veterinary or medical advice. Horses are large, unpredictable animals, so always work with qualified professionals. Put your safety first. The views and faith we share are our own. We're so glad that you're here.
Thank you for listening. See you at the fence.